Alright guys, today we're going to go over the Yellowstone Park records from 1989. I have the complete park ranger records and we're going to start on February 6th. So a man and his friends, a 48-year-old man, were drinking heavily and riding snowmobiles around Yellowstone. Obviously anytime you're drinking and riding ATVs or snowmobiles, it's a recipe for disaster. So he was driving about 50 miles an hour. He was driving at a faster speed between 30 and 50 and actually collided with a buffalo. I mean, if you can imagine this scene of a snowmobile flying along and boom, hitting a buffalo. So when all this happened, all of his friends, they tried to administer CPR and do all this to save his life, but it was to no avail. He had a broken neck and suffered several severe injuries. He had some head and chest injuries as well. So the bison, on the other hand, was still walking around after this accident, after being hit by a man on a snowmobile. So I'm not sure if the snowmobile went underneath the bison and the man collided with the bison's torso, but very crazy incident and very sad. Don't drink and ride snowmobiles. They're dangerous enough as it is. You can't see very well. There's snow that gets thrown up in front of you so you can't see, and then boom. So the next story takes place on August 16th, 1989. It's actually a follow-up on an assault that occurred in 1988. So this is story number 2, and basically there was a 20-year-old Job Corps member that was in a fire camp in Yellowstone. And the Utah Correctional Facility had a prisoner inmate out there staying in the same camp as this Job Corps volunteer was staying. A 20-year-old volunteer and this 33-year-old prison inmate. So basically the 33-year-old SA'd or assaulted the 20-year-old and basically was charged criminally for this act. He had admitted to it. So that was taken care of. However, the 20-year-old went on to file a civil lawsuit against both the perpetrator and also the Utah Correctional Facility for negligence as far as having them in the camp together, and also negligence as far as not guarding the prison inmate properly. Okay, so this is story number 3. This is actually a really crazy story about an 18-year-old from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that actually walked into the visitor center of Old Faithful with a .30 caliber Ruger. I mean, I don't know if he watched movies or too many movies or what, but he literally was like, "Get down, everybody get down on the ground." And everybody got down. Basically, he proceeded to let the women and children go within a few minutes. So kind of just like in the movies, he's literally taken over the Yellowstone Old Faithful Visitor Center and taken everyone in there hostage, let out the women and children, and he literally held 8 hostages for over 3 hours in this visitor center. They consisted of, there were 2 seasonal interpretive rangers, 5 male visitors, and it looks like an employee. I mean, it's like, holy cow, what is wrong with this kid? So ultimately, park rangers were notified and they responded to this quickly. They did employ some hostage negotiators. The hostage negotiators talked to him for a while. They were able to kind of talk him down. He was calm on the phone. He did have his gun pointed at the hostages most of the time. I mean, I'm assuming this is an 18-year-old kid and there's 8 men there. So he's just trying to kind of keep them in check. But the reason he did this is unclear. Apparently he did plan this, and he had planned to do it either in Yellowstone or the Grand Canyon. So if you can imagine that he was gonna, I don't know if he was gonna kill these people and commit suicide, because that's, I guess, what the reports were, is that he was suicidal and he said he might take someone with him or something like that. After about 3 hours, he ultimately gave up he put his gun down and walked out to the authorities. So thank God it went down without an incident. He was brought to the psychiatric ward in Wyoming, and hopefully he was helped with his issues after this. I'm not sure as far as a prison sentence or, a follow-up on the sentence. Some of this stuff can be hard to find because it's pre-internet. It's 1989, remember? So on June 14th, 1989, a 38-year-old man from Sumter, Oregon, broke into the Yellowstone water treatment facility. He was literally smashing a bunch of gauges with the hammer and breaking windows and all kinds of different stuff. It sounds like he broke in the middle of the night, somewhat close to the morning. So when the employee arrived the next morning, he saw all kinds of damage done. So, there's smashed gauges and windows, and as he's noticing all this damage, he literally hears glass breaking. So, of course, he calls the Rangers. The Rangers fly over there, and they arrest this dummy, take him to jail. I guess there was no motive, like he never really talked on why he did this. But the suspicious things that happened was, they thought he maybe put something in the water. So they told the people around Yellowstone, don't drink the water, and they took some water for testing, and they sent it in to Bozeman, and that kind of thing. In the meantime, they're like, how did you get to Yellowstone? Like, where's your car? Because literally, he's at this place with no vehicle, no sign of anything, right? So he said he gave his car away in Mammoth, I believe. And they went and looked into it, and they found his car just completely destroyed. So they're assuming he gave his car away, or he destroyed his car, said he gave it away, and then hitchhiked into Yellowstone to literally smash all this stuff at the water treatment facility and potentially poison the water with no motive. So, like the song goes, people are crazy. So on the afternoon of August 10th, 3 major mudslides occurred. There was actually a dozen moderate slides and 3 larger ones. For the larger mudslides, they actually had to bring in heavy equipment between Gibbon Falls and Gibbon Meadow. So, pretty major mudslides. The main thing that happened here in this event was that the mudslide washed 8 vehicles into the river. 2 deputies or rangers actually had to go and rescue a family of 3 from the river because of this. They ended up walking them to safety, as well as the drivers and people that were in the other 8 vehicles. So pretty major mudslides. Glad there was no loss of life or injury during this particular event. So on August 17th, 1989, this is story number 6, there was a 19-year-old concession stand employee from Pennsylvania, and he was in Yellowstone. He was descending Mount Holmes when he surprised a mother grizzly bear and 3 cubs. So the mother shooed her cubs away and then charged this young 19-year-old man, and he tried to put up a fight for a little bit and fight with the bear, and then he just decided to play dead and curl up in a ball the best he could. Basically, the bear still mauled him briefly. It sounds like it wasn't as bad as some other ones. It put some scratches on his chest. He was pretty scuffed up. It had some minor bite marks, and it bit his foot, apparently. So no serious or life-threatening injuries. It sounds like she literally just beat him up and then took off to save her cubs. So thank God he was okay, but I'm sure that must have been terrifying. So on July 28th in Grant Village, Yellowstone, a concession employee named Joyce was literally walking around kind of in the back country. I guess it would be the Black Basin. And apparently there had been some fires there previously to 1989. So she's walking around spreading something on the ground, and they stop her and say, "What are you doing?" And she's like spreading these seeds, and they were actually Dutch white clover. She's spreading all over the ground because she thought Yellowstone wasn't going to recover from the fires. So she was spreading a plant that was not native to Yellowstone all over the ground, and she was actually charged with this. She was given $100 fine that was suspended. I mean, you could see she had good intentions here, but kind of off track in her thinking or thought process. So I'm sad to report a 75-year-old woman and her 65-year-old husband from Washington on October 6th, 1989 were driving along on Canyon Road. Very icy conditions at this time on October 6th, 1989. Even though they had tried to clear the roads the best they could, if you've ever been to Yellowstone, the snow gets hard packed on the road, and it's literally just like an ice skating rink almost. So they left the road and struck a tree, and I'm sorry to say they both passed away upon striking the tree. So the final story is actually a follow up from a previous story I had mentioned when the 18-year-old took over the visitor center at Old Faithful Inn there. So basically, the 18-year-old young man was sentenced to stay in a mental facility until he's well enough to be released so he's not a harm to himself and others. Apparently, he did have a couple psychologists testify on his behalf, and basically they said that his mental health had been deteriorating. He did have a history of mental illness, and apparently he was just diagnosed with skin cancer, so this is kind of what added to the behavior. So the judge sounds like he took it easy on him. He didn't charge the kid with kidnapping, even though he took 8 people hostage and was potentially going to kill them. He just ordered him to go to a mental health facility until further notice or until he's deemed well enough to leave, which I'm curious how long he ended up having to stay in that mental health facility. Mental illness, I'm sure he knew right from wrong. And having skin cancer isn't an excuse to take 8 people hostage. I mean, imagine the hostage's opinion on this outcome, where he literally got a slap on the wrist and he might do it again next year. But such is justice in our society. So thanks for coming along. I hope you come along to the next ones. We got plenty more. Appreciate it. Please like and subscribe.